Yesterday we dug into the whole Aaron Rodgers injury after news came out about him tearing his Achilles and how that will affect the Jets and basically put their whole season really up in the air and really unknown at this point. And I also dug into Josh Allen about how he managed to let last night's game slip away from him when it was right there for the taking. So if you want to see my opinion on that, go check out yesterday's video. But today, from this past football weekend, I really want to go into the rookie quarterbacks who played and really dive into how they did and, rate their performance and what to expect going forward. So the main rookie quarterbacks, Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, those are the main three. I really want to get into, just out of the three, who was better and who played the worst, and were there any major concerns out of any of the three that people should be worried about, people should be looking forward to. So we're going to get into that. And firstly, the most impressive rookie in my opinion was Anthony Richardson. I felt like out of everybody, he looked the most poised, and even though he did have some mistakes towards the end, he could have done the little things better. He's a rookie, so that thing's going to happen. But overall, I did think he had the best performance, having a rushing touchdown. He did throw a pick towards the end, and he did get injured, but it's looking like it was just a little bone bruise, so he should be back. But overall, I think Anthony Richardson had the better performance out of all three of them, and I think I expected that because I expected Anthony Richardson to, be one of the main ones to really look the best right out the gate from an immediate standpoint, because I figured just in preseason alone, he looked better out of all when it came to getting the ball out fast, making a little bit more decisive decisions, tight throws. He looked more composed back there. So I expected him to perform better than the other two right away. But I do think, over time, Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, they will catch up and they will start to progress and do what they need to do. Now, out of the worst performance, I think that Bryce Young had the worst performance because even though he did throw a touchdown, he did have two interceptions, and, two interceptions and you lose is really costly. But I wouldn't be too concerned because just watching the game film and just, watching the game, you could see that, contrary to what people may say about his size and how his offensive line isn't that great, I do think he was able to hold up back there, and he did look composed and poised, and he wasn't just willy-nilly running for his life half the time. So I do think, and I'm glad to see that he's looking a little more composed right out the gate, and I expect big things from Bryce Young. And looking into CJ Stroud, I think CJ Stroud kind of had the more hectic game because he did go against a Ravens defense that is known to just be consistently tough and hard-nosed year in and year out. So with CJ Stroud, even though I don't think he did the worst, I do think he had, the worst situation just coming in because it looked rough. And, even though the score may say different about the game against them and the Ravens, it was a lot closer than what the box score shows. And I feel like, the Texans did a better job at, well, I wouldn't say better, but the Texans did more of a job of making it key to, trust CJ Stroud in most situations. They did ask him to throw a lot, and I was surprised to see that they wanted him to throw a lot because the running game wasn't doing much. So he was tasked to throw a lot of the ball, and I do think, that kind of hurt them because I don't think you should be having your quarterback throw over 40 passes in his first game. But he did do it, and, it wasn't the prettiest game. It was an ugly game, but I do expect him to, get better, and, just continue to improve. So a lot of things to expect from these rookies and everything that's going on with them, and I'm looking forward to see how they play out. Now, nextly, I want to get into the top dogs in the NFC, and Sunday we saw just who were the top dogs in the NFC, which would be Dallas Cowboys and the 49ers. And regarding on who was more impressive, who showed more dominance, personally, I say overall the 49ers offense was more electric and they did a lot more. But I do think the Cowboys posing a shutout and holding the Giants to 0 points, who did win a playoff game last year, I think that was greatly impressive, and the amount of depth that Dallas defense has, I think is very impressive, and I think it's gonna be the best defense in the league, and it can show just in that first game alone. It showed that game that defense is going to be elite, and I don't think people are going to have a hard time trying to score on them and get through them. And I think Dallas right now, just on from a defensive standpoint, it's all going to rely on Dak and how much are they going to let Dak do, because I feel like if they have similar games like Sunday to where the defense holds out, your defense is playing elite, your defense getting stops, getting turnovers, and Dak throws the ball, less than 30 times, you're running the ball well, you're getting him short fields, you're not asking Dak to do too much. I think that is the best situation for Dallas in order to take advantage of this roster and this elite team they have. And I think they could potentially go to the Super Bowl. And you know who the Cowboys, sometimes the Cowboys cowboy, and things can happen. But I do think that this is one of their best years. I think from last year and maybe the next year or two, I think this is their best window of time to take advantage of what they have. And for the 49ers, everybody just really showed out. The offense was just hot fire. The offense showed out. The defense held up, blowing out a Pittsburgh team that I expected to be pretty competitive, and I do still think to be pretty competitive, and I do still think they are a good team. So that is extremely impressive on my end and in my opinion. But one of the more engaging stories into that game against the Steelers, I think Brock Purdy looked dang good. I'm being honest. Brock Purdy looked like a good to very good quarterback, and obviously some people are gonna task it up to Kyle Shanahan and his offensive system, but I do think that Brock Purdy is one of the better quarterbacks they had, surprisingly. You can argue if you want to say he's a better fit than Jimmy G, that remains to be seen, but I do think for what Brock Purdy can do, he's a little bit more mobile, and he gets the ball out fast. He's perfect for what they need, and I think the 49ers are going to take advantage of this. And some would say the Eagles, and I do think the Eagles will inevitably be right up there, but I do want people to realize that losing both your offense and defensive coordinator is huge. When you have a system that works, that did well, and you lose, you have a top offense and you have a top defense. Losing both coordinators on both sides, I don't think people understand just how detrimental that can be and how much of a shift that can be for the players who are involved in it. And I do think it'll be an adjustment period, so I don't expect the Eagles to get out to a start like they had last year, going almost undefeated. But I do think they will have some ups and downs because of the new system, because of new offensive and defensive coordinator, and I don't think they'll have as good as a record as they did last year. I do think they'll still be an elite team right up there with the Cowboys and the 49ers, but right now I have the Cowboys in San Francisco, just slightly above them, just based on the performance they had Sunday and just how much I think that could affect the Eagles losing both the offense and defensive coordinator. So it still remains to be seen, but the NFC is real top heavy, but the top teams are, cream of the crop. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that whole three-way is going to play out. But that's it for this one. Don't forget to tune in for next episode, where I'll really be diving into some of the more surprises of the weekend and everything out of all the games that was played. Some of the more surprises and things that I liked, didn't like out of certain teams that I didn't get to discuss in this one. So stay tuned for that. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. Have a good day. Love.